You want to recreate your configuration quickly if something goes wrong? Keep watching. So in the previous episodes, we got our cluster built, we got it set up, and now we're ready to install some workloads. But what if anything goes wrong? We want to be able to recreate our configuration as quickly as possible with minimal effort. And I'm going to show you how. Now, here are some timestamps for those who want to jump ahead. Let's dive in. I'm Garrett, and this is TheFatRat. So how do we recreate our configuration quickly? Let me tell you a few little tricks. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up a repository that contains all our basic infrastructure workloads, like load balancer, certificate setup, etc. And we want this so that we can recreate our cluster as quickly as possible if we need to rebuild a cluster. Now, the problem with most of those tools is that if you run workloads inside your own cluster, like for example, you host your own Gitea or GitLab, and you have all your source code there, if your cluster breaks down and you cannot access your own repositories that you're hosting yourself, you cannot have access to your repositories that contains your infrastructure code. So we need to place this outside of our cluster. And this is how we're going to do it. We are going to use gitlab.com, and that is where we're going to store our repository with our infrastructure code. The best trick is GitLab has an ability to use something called a GitLab agent, which will run inside your cluster and allows you to connect gitlab.com directly to your cluster. Don't worry, it's totally safe. But the best part is it allows you to simply run a workflow or a pipeline. GitLab.com calls the pipeline. GitHub.com calls the workflow. And we can trigger that and it will completely deploy everything, our entire configuration to our cluster. And in this way, we can have everything organized. We can have it versioned through Git, and we can quickly redeploy it if we need to when we're rebuilding. Best part, if we need to make changes, we have a full history of what we're doing, so we can always go back to a previous configuration that worked. So, what we're gonna do in this video, we are gonna deploy the GitLab agent into our cluster, and we're gonna link it to our gitlab.com repository. Let's get started. So, what do we need? Well, don't worry, this ain't that hard. We need 3 repositories. We need one with the source code to deploy the agent to our cluster, and I'm gonna use Terraform for that. Then we need an empty repository where the GitLab agent can store its configuration. And third, we need a repository where we're gonna place our code. Basically, we are gonna place the infrastructure code, for example, the Helm deployment of our traffic for our load balancer or certificate manager, anything that we wanna run on our cluster, we're gonna put in this repository. And this is the repository that is gonna use the GitLab agent to deploy it to the cluster. So let me show you. So first we're gonna jump to our browser. So I already set most of it up, but don't worry, you can follow along. So here we have our GitLab agent deployment. And this is the repository that contains our infrastructure code. This is fully open. You can access it, and you can access it at gitlab.com/k3s-tpi/gitlab-agents deployment. Now, for those who want to also have maybe use the code or clone it from GitHub, I have this code synced to github.com, so you can access it through my GitHub profile at github.com/ggrtimmer/terraform -GitLab Kubernetes agent. So you can grab that code. I will show you how to use it and get everything up and running. The next thing what we need is, as I said before, a empty repository where we can store the configuration for GitLab agent. Don't worry, this will be managed by the agent. So we don't have to do anything. We just have to ensure that the access token that we're going to use to deploy the GitLab agent can access this repository. So as you can see, I'm going to store the configuration of the GitLab agents in my GitLab agents repository, right? As you can see, it's totally empty. And then finally, under cluster, and then I made a project K3S. This is the repository where in future videos, we are gonna put our workloads, our infrastructure workloads like our load balancer, and anything we might need that we easily want to reproduce, we're gonna put it here. Now, the trick is that if we need to redeploy or we need to recreate our cluster, the only thing that we need to do is set up our cluster, get it installed, up and running. Then we have to redeploy the GitLab agent and simply trigger that workflow, and everything will automatically be redeployed. And everything is up and running and repaired. So that's the goal that we're going to work towards. Now, let's get started. Let's install the GitLab agent for Kubernetes. Now, if you skipped ahead, you didn't see the previous section, you can grab the code we're working with straight down below from the comments. Let's dive in. So what we're going to do is make sure that you have cloned the repository and you're ready to go. Now, let's jump to Visual Studio Code. And here we are. So this repository comes with a README, and we're just going to follow that along. So let's open the README and see what first and everything we need to do. So go to .config and copy the agent's example to the configuration folder. So, and we're going to rename this to agents.yaml. Let's see what else we need to do. And copy agent example dot to config/agent.yaml. I built it a few days ago. So, and in this configuration, you need to configure all your agents. Yes, the repository allows you to install multiple agents, but for now, we're just going to install one. And as you can see, it's an array, so you can install multiple. K3S, well, I like that name for the agent. We have a namespace GitLab agent, totally fine. Create a namespace, sure. Repository. So this is the repository, one of the two empty ones I mentioned before. This is where the GitLab agent is going to install its configuration. So we're going to use the k3s-tpi/GitLab agents. We're going to use the main branch. And for this agent, we're going to use config/k3s.yaml, and we're going to run 2 replicas, meaning we're going to run it twice to make sure that if anything goes down, the agent keeps running. Cool. So this one is done. Configure agents, we done that one. For each agent, create config/ by using config example, sure. So we're taking the config.example. By the way, I just saw a typo. I'm going to fix that later. And we're going to paste it. And let's see. In our agents.yaml, we use the name K3s. So this one is going to be called rename K3s.yaml. Now, and what you're going to do with this, There are more keys, but this is basically the authorization and configuration of the agent, what it can access and what it is allowed to do. What I'm going to do is I'm not going to give it access to the entire group. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this and I'm going to set this to an empty group. And I'm going to say projects ID, and we're going to give it the path to the other repository I mentioned, the empty one where we're going to put our workload source code. So that is K3S. It's all on gitlab.com, by the way, deliberately. You will know in a few moments why. K3S-tpi slash cluster slash K3S. So this is the repository that's going to hold our code. Awesome. So now here's the thing. This is Terraform. So you do need the Terraform binary installed. But what also we're going to do is the Terraform state, we're going to store that also in GitLab. So let's initialize this repository. So I actually built a very handy initialization script to make sure that everything works. So what we're going to do is we are going to run that script. So let's open a terminal with control tilde. So scripts, Terraform, enter GitLab username. Okay, so I am gonna hide that one from you guys. Sorry about that. Next question is the project ID. The project ID it's gonna ask is the project where the source code is. It has to be that project because that's where we're gonna store the Terraform state. So we're gonna jump to our web browser, and what we're gonna do is when we deploy Terraform, we're gonna keep a state of our deployment. And that's going to be kept here at operate Terraform states. So here we're going to keep that. So what we need actually is we need the project ID for this project. Well, here it is. We can copy this project ID. I am quickly going to copy that to our terminal. Next question. Sorry for not showing. I would like to keep some information private. Is the GitLab token. So what you need to do is you need to paste in your GitLab token. Well, let me grab that one quickly. And then you have to give your Kubernetes context. Well, if you give end, it goes to your default context of your cluster. I have to give another one because I have multiple clusters running. And then it starts creating and initializing Terraform. So as you can see, it starts downloading, initializing the backend, and does everything to get everything set up. So you will see a Terraform and a .env. The .env will actually contain your personal access token, which is why I'm not opening it on screen for the video. Sorry about that. Don't want to have my personal access token leaked. So yeah, now we are actually ready. Well, the next part is we have this .env with our variables. So we should be able to source .env. That will load it in our terminal. We're gonna clear this and we're gonna say Terraform plan. And perfect. So here's what it's gonna do. It's gonna hide sensitive values. Don't worry about it. So here's what it's gonna do. It's showing you the plan of all the resources that's gonna create and everything that is gonna be deployed to our cluster, which is gonna be awesome. So now the only thing we have to do left is we need to apply this. So what I'm gonna do is first I am gonna prime my terminal. Let me show you guys. So we got a terminal. I am gonna launch K9S. And there it is. So this is what we saw in the previous video. This is our basic empty cluster. Now let's jump to VS Code and we're gonna say Terraform apply deploy the GitLab agent. Here we go. And I'm quickly jumping to our terminal. It will ask, as you can see, from, hey, are you sure you want to deploy? The answer is yes, I'm sure. And now it's going to deploy. And in a few moments, we should see a new namespace with our GitLab agent being deployed to our cluster. So right now it's creating the Helm release. And there we go, container creating. Isn't that awesome? So this is gonna start up. It's gonna take a few moments for the cluster to pull in all the images and all the configuration and get everything set up. But this is pretty neat. So we have our cluster actually spinning up our GitLab agent. And as you can see, there are two. And the reason is we asked for two replicas so that, for example, if one is running on node 1, one is running on node 3, we're rebooting node 1, then everything is still up and running. So the first one jumped to running state. Oh, this is absolutely fantastic. As you can see, it turned to healthy state. The other one is still creating, probably gonna take a moment. And we can see in VS Code here, it is still creating. So that's what we're waiting on. But we actually got one of them already up and running. And there it is. It switched to running state and it shows that's healthy. So everything is now up and running. And there is a very cool way of checking that everything is up and running. How we're gonna do that? We're gonna jump to GitLab because there we should see our agent. So let's jump to GitLab, GitLab agents. And as you can see, hey, in this empty repository, we now have a configuration. So operate Kubernetes clusters. And there it is. This is our GitLab agent in our cluster. It's linked to gitlab.com. And we can now use a repository in gitlab.com to deploy workloads straight to our cluster. That is absolutely fantastic. Now, and because we gave the authorization, you can see has been contacted, everything is up and running. It looks fantastic. Now, if we go to cluster and we go to K3S, the repository that we authorized in our ID operates. And here you can see, there it is, our GitLab agent. So this repository is completely ready to deploy workloads to our cluster. So I hope you enjoyed this because this is a way how you can quickly reproduce your cluster if anything goes wrong. How you set up your new cluster or you repair your cluster or you have everything wiped. The only thing you do is you need an empty cluster, you deploy the GitLab agent, and then you can redeploy your entire workload configuration directly to your cluster. And you can have a coffee while it is doing that. This will save you a lot of time by setting this up from the beginning. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, subscribe. It really helps me out. And I see you in my next video. I am Garrett and this is TheFatRat.